What's up, guys? It's Charlie Trainer with EatLiftGame.com. I am jumping into this fantasy draft. This is a real money draft. It's a $150 buy-in. It is $10 per ad. This is a 10-man league. We actually have a little bit more money for the auction, but this is going to be pretty deep. There's 2 quarterbacks that will be playing each week, 4 wide receivers, 3 running backs, a tight end, 2 flex positions, which could be a wide receiver, running back, or a tight end, then a kicker, and apparently 2 defenses. So there is more than enough players. We're going to have to go super deep, and I'm not going to record the whole thing because that'll take hours, but I will come back every once in a while. I'll probably just come back and show you each person's team and how it played out. As I said before, I was doing a fantasy draft last night. It ended really late, so I'm just doing this now. But let's take a look at how everything worked out, and then I will come back and show you my team. So these guys, for some reason, decided to start throwing kickers out early. I don't know why. Maybe they were trying to steal them or whatnot, but you can see a few of them in the top there. But eventually we started throwing out some real good players. There was only a couple people in this draft who had really questionable drafts, I would say. Some people were taking, there was a couple people who took guys with some, if not season-long injuries, the majority of the season injuries, and that was really only one person. Someone also took Colt McCoy. Here it is, pick number 135, Tarkinos took Colt McCoy, who is probably a sleeper because he'll be asleep on the bench for the entire season behind Colin Kaepernick unless he gets paralyzed or something this year. But I'm going to let you go ahead and you can come on back and take a look at this if you really want to. This is the entire draft. I'm going to go to my team, show you what I've got, and then I'll give you a breakdown of what kind of stats we're looking at. So these are huge rosters, just so you know. Like I said, there's 2 quarterbacks, there's 4 wide receivers, 3 running backs, a tight end, 2 flex positions, and then 7 bench players, as well as 2 defenses. So those are going to be playing active each week. Now, I took Alex Smith, and part of the reason I took Alex Smith is not because of these numbers here. I took him because Andy Reid notoriously passes for, I would say, well over 50% of the plays, and Alex Smith's numbers are based off of about a half a season from last year. And not to mention that he's got a little more wide receiver talent out in Kansas City than they do in San Francisco. If San Francisco has a loophole, or has a weakness, it's probably their receivers. The addition to Anquan Boldin was great, but they also lost Michael Crabtree. Their draft, A.J. Jenkins from last year, has pretty much been a bust. And Vernon Davis is kind of hit or miss. So then I took Matt Schaub. Matt Schaub every year throws for about 4,000 yards. He has one of the most talented wide receivers, who I've also drafted, Andre Johnson. But another guy who's going to really affect that team is another person I picked up, and that's DeAndre Hopkins. This guy is 6'1", out of South Carolina. He's from South Carolina, but he actually played at Clemson. Anybody who plays in either the SEC or even the ACC, you're looking at a pretty talented pool of players that they're going to be competing with week in and week out. And right now, he's really impressed in camp. So I got him for relatively cheap. I think he was only like $2 or something like that. Jonathan Dwyer, I'm going to go over my bench right now, but Jonathan Dwyer is probably going to get a decent amount of the reps, though he probably will be on my bench most of the year. Christian Ponder, he'll probably play on both Alex Smith and Matt Schaub's bye weeks. And really, I would say my quarterbacks is probably going to be my weakest spot on this team. Michael Bush gets a lot of goal line, and that's why I have him, just in case of bye weeks. Zach Sedfeld is going to get the nod in New England as the tight end starter. Rob Gronkowski is just a mystery at this point, whether or not he might even be on the PUP list. We're not sure, which is players unable to perform. Kembrell Tompkins, here's another, This is one of my sleepers right here. Kembrell Tompkins and DeAndre Hopkins are both sleepers. DeAndre Hopkins not so much a sleeper just because people are starting to recognize him, but Tompkins has been one of the best targets for Tom Brady this season, and he's a big target. He is 6'1", out of Cincinnati, and he's got speed. So he's definitely bigger than Danny Amendola, if that's how you pronounce it. But he's also, from what he hasn't played yet this season. Danny Amendola tends to be injury prone, and I'm trying to stay away from him. And I'm hoping Kembrell ends up being a big move here. Let's work our way back up. We'll go up through the flex positions. Daryl Richardson is the feature back in St. Louis. He's the reason Steven Jackson's not there anymore. Steven Jackson did get a big contract with Atlanta, but Daryl Richardson is Steven Jackson, only about 10 years younger. I don't know if that's an accurate age, but close. Mark Ingram has the nod as the starter in New Orleans. I'm not expecting a whole lot out of him other than some receptions. Of course, in this league, receptions count. So receptions, he's going to get some yards, he'll get some touchdowns. So he's basically just a flex player for me. Brandon Myers. This guy is going to be paired up with Eli Manning, and I think that's a good combination. Manning likes to target his tight ends, especially in the red zone. Myers is a big guy. Eddie Lacy appears to be the starter for the Green Bay Packers. If there's anything the Green Bay Packers have been missing besides defense, it's a running back, and this looks to be him. He's a big, strong young back, and I'm expecting big things out of him. Alfred Morris, great rookie season, 1,600 yards rushing. I expect about the same from him. Even if he's 1,500 yards, that's a good, solid season for a running back. Marshawn Lynch, beast mode, you can't go wrong. Emmanuel Sanders, I'm expecting bigger numbers out of him because Ben Roethlisberger will hopefully be healthy all year. You can't plan for injuries, but this guy can pull down the catches with the best of them. James Jones with some injuries in their wide receivers. This guy had 14 touchdowns last year, but with injuries to the receivers, he's a big target for Aaron Rodgers to throw to. I'm expecting, if not 14 touchdowns, I'm expecting at least 1,000 yards and probably around 10 touchdowns. Andre Johnson's with the add to DeAndre Hopkins, who's another speed threat. This guy is probably going to have another 1,500 yard season as usual. He's been one of the best wide receivers in the league since he's been in the league, and I'm expecting the same, if not better. Larry Fitzgerald's numbers were down last year. That's because they had a terrible quarterback. They haven't had a quarterback in Arizona since Kurt Warner. Now they have Carson Palmer, who people laugh about Carson Palmer to an extent, but he threw for 4,000 yards with the Raiders. If you can do that with the Raiders, you're okay, because the Raiders are terrible. I expect them to be probably in dead last this year, certainly in their division, and they'll probably be, around there for the league too. Their defense is okay, but besides terrible ownership, they just have a really weak team. I'm going to come on down here to kickers. The kicker, quite frankly, I'm going to have to drop him and add him during the bye week. David Akers will be a good one. He always has been. And, as long as your kicker gets you 7 points a week, that's about all you need. And finally, defenses. Atlanta, they made some big acquisitions in the offseason, particularly in the draft. I'm expecting better things out of them. One of the reasons I picked them was their points allowed. They kept it below 300. The other thing is they tend to stay fresh. And they're fresh because their offense has the ball and moves the ball and scores. So they have time to catch their breath on the sideline. Unlike some teams where you'll see even Minnesota has a good defense, but their offense a lot of time has 4 and outs, and by the end of the game you're tired. It happens to the Bears too because Cutler's terrible. Moving down, St. Louis, 52 sacks last year. I'm hoping these points allowed come down just a little bit, but they are as good a defense as any in the league. They also have Jeff Fisher, who has really turned around that franchise, and I'm expecting them to really, that division is going to be a tight one in the league. And finally, Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh last year only gave up 290 points total, and that's without Troy Polamalu, who's one of the best safeties the game's ever seen, and I'm expecting them to bounce back and have a pretty good season. You can even see they had lower yards allowed than a lot of teams, and that's my team. Tell me what you think. If you don't like it, don't care. If you do, great. Other than that, stay posted to eatliftgame.com. We got more videos, more workouts, more recipes. Don't forget to check out our Facebook, our Twitter, our Pinterest, and officially you can subscribe to us on iTunes for our podcast. This week we're talking everything entertainment as usual, and